So in this section, we'll be discussing the contusions and the bruises in detail. Now, contusions or they can also be called as the bruises, they are basically caused by the blunt weapon forces. And the blunt weapons can, of course, it can be a rock, a stone, or any rather blunt object which can be used for the causation of these injuries. This section basically deals with the types and the factors affecting the prominence of the bruise, and we'll be discussing even the laymen are known to this movement of the bruise and the alteration of the bruise with time, because it can enlarge with the passage of time due to the extravasation of the blood after the injury. And the bruising of the special significance and kicking is also very important. Kicking is a phenomena which can be seen even in the homicidal cases, and we can also come across it through the brawl fights that take place, and it is very prominent, and even during the stampedes it can take place. So it is very important, and we should know the characteristics associated to the kicking. Now, the contusions and bruises are mainly defined as the extravasation of the blood that is arbitrarily larger than a few millimeters in diameter is usually termed as a bruise or a contusion. So the blood can be the venule frigidity or the arteriolar fragility is a factor that can come into play when these bruises occur. So we have to you can see the bruise over here. It has a slight discoloration, and it is due to the extravasation of the blood through the arterioles or the venules, and it basically can move, and it has its own characteristics that we'll discuss in this section. Now, why does it occur? It is caused by the damage to the veins, venules, and the small arteries. A smaller version to the bruise are the petechial hemorrhages that are seen in the asphyxial deaths, also known as the ecchymosis or the petechiae. Now, what is the difference between a bruise and a contusion? A bruise, the size is the main difference between a bruise and a contusion. A bruise is a little smaller, and a contusions are basically when the bruises coalesce together, they form a contusion. Now, talking about the intradermal bruises. Usual bruise from a blunt impact is situated in the subcutaneous tissues and viewed through the overlying corium and the epidermis. Sometimes it is blurred, especially at the edges. We have to describe the bruise starting from the edges, and we'll come across to its center. That is the basic description that it follows. The size, the margins, and the site of impact is enhanced over here. The impact with a patterned object is also the mainstay over here, because the pattern will be observed in the bruise as well. The hemorrhage is more sharply defined if it lies in the intermediate subepidermal layers. The subepidermal layers basically contains the vascular network, and that is why the bruise will be more pronounced over here. The factors which affect the prominence of a bruise. Talking about the site of injury, it is very important, because if there is an underlying bone, there will be much there that will cause the pressurization on the vasculature, and it will cause a much larger bruise. The vascularity of the part is again the type of the site is involved over here. Now, the age of the person is very important, as the older people and the children are more prone to bruising. The sex of the person is very important, because the female gender is more prone to bruising. The color of the skin, if it is fair, the fair people have basically prominent bruises. It's not that they are going to bruise more, but it's just that the bruises are more prominent on a fairer kind of a skin rather than a negroid kind of a skin. The natural diseases which can affect the fragility of the vasculature are also very important over here, because that will affect the extravasation of the blood after someone is hit, and it will basically affect that bruising area. For example, any thrombocytopenias can affect the bruising if the person is on some sort of medications. For example, Loperin or blood thinning agents, that will cause the person to bruise more. Now, the gravitational shifting of the blood basically causes the movement of the bruising that will basically affect the a bruise. That I was talking about, the movement of the bruise. The bruise appears first at some other place, and then it appears at some other impact that is very distant from the point of impact. So that basically looks like as if the bruise has moved from one place to another. Now, why does it take place? For example, in a black eye syndrome, what happens is the blood has some capability to move around the soft tissues. There is space for the blood to move around. Basically, when the blood extravasates from the vessels, it moves around the soft tissues, and it seems as if the bruise has moved from one place to the other place. The superficial lesions appear immediately at the point of infliction, but when the blood extravasates in the deeper tissues, it takes time to reach the surfaces. It basically happens under the pressure forces of the gravity. The alteration of the bruises with time, it gets smaller with periphery to the center, and the series of the color changes takes place. Why does it change place? Because when the bruise is red, it is immediately after infliction. The bruise is red, and why is it? Because of the presence of the hemoglobin. Then it appears to be dusky purple fairly after half an hour or 8 hours. It appears blue after 8 hours to 4 days and 2 weeks. It appears a slight greenish tinge from 4 days to 1 to 3 weeks. And it turns kind of yellow from 7 days to 3 weeks. It disappears in about 1 to 4 weeks. So we have to keep this cycle in our mind. Why? Why is it important? Because when we are writing down the time of impact, we are writing down any medico-legal report, and we are writing down what could be the possible time of impact of this injury. All these color changes come into play, and we can easily calculate how much time has passed on. Now, bruising of special significances are the sixpenny bruises. They basically occur in the child abuse cases. They basically are the imprints of the fingers that were placed on the child, or whether he was pressurized by these fingers, and they basically cause small circular penny-like bruises, and that's why they are called as the sixpenny bruises. The tram line or the railway line type is basically when someone is dragged along some sharp, blunt objects. The bites can result in also bruises. For example, they can be teeth bites, and they also result in sexual assaults and in any different types of physical assaults that a person can come across. The black eye is usually due to a heavy punch or a blow to the eye, and it basically the blood is extravasated into the soft tissues around the ocular regions. And below the ear, in a death from the subarachnoid hemorrhage, a person can also die to this type of an hemorrhage. So all these special cases have to be kept in mind, and they're very significant whenever we come across these bruises. They basically indicate the type of death or the type of accident that occurred to the individual. Now, how are we going to differentiate the post-mortem bruising and the other artifacts? The swelling is observed only in the ante-mortem bruising, and it cannot be similar as in the post-mortem bruising as well as in the ante-mortem bruising. The evidence of the extravasation of the blood is found only in the ante-mortem bruising. It can be produced like ante-mortem to some extent within minimum to maximum 2 to 3 hours, that too on the tissue which can be forcibly compressed against the bone. So if we see an ante-mortem bruising, the extravasated blood will impact the coloring to the affected area, and we will not see these color changes in the post-mortem bruising. The color changes denote the resolution of the bruise and in the ante-mortem bruising, and the detection of the enzyme ascertain the ante-mortem origin, for example, esterase, the aminopeptidases, the acid phosphatases, the alkaline phosphatases, all of them come into play only when the subject is alive. While we see the post-mortem bruising, they are disproportionate to the effect of the force, and the bruise will always be in a lesser quantity. The occipital post-mortem bruising will stimulate the ante-mortem bruise, and the difference is absence of the vital reaction apart from the microscopy, because the vital reaction is only a part of the ante-mortem bruising due to the presence of all the enzymes that were a part of that. So these are the basic differences, how we differentiate an ante-mortem bruise to the post-mortem bruise. Now, the kicking phenomena. Coming on to the kicking phenomena, it is also known as the shod foot, and it basically causes a patent bruise. A glancing kick will cause a scuffed abrasion or the bruising. On the other hand, a kick with a toe cap will produce a curved abrasion, or even a laceration can be produced through this toe cap abrasion. Now, the vertical stamping action that is usually found in a stampede, that will only cause an intradermal bruise because it has a vertical impact on the skin. So these are the type of kicking impacts that can be found during a fight, during a stampede, or during any homicidal cases that we come across. Now, the large hematomas and the intramuscular contusions form the heavy kicks, and the abdominal and the thoracic organs can be ruptured even through this kicking phenomena. The genitalia are vulnerable, all the soft tissues, the scrotum, the vulva, even the ocular, eyes, etc., the lips, they are quite vulnerable to this kicking phenomena. And the fracture of mandible, the small bones, the nasal bones, the zygomatas, and the cranial walls can be a part of this kicking phenomena. So in this section, basically, we dealt with the blunt weapon injuries, mainly the bruises and the kicking phenomena. They're very important forensically, and that is basically the end to this section. Thank you for watching sqadia.com.